You know, Jesus said, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. That's John 16:33. And the story you will hear today is of a family who has lived this verse and in Jesus overcame the troubles that this fallen world often presents. This is a story of a true anchor. And I'm going to say this. They cast this anchor in Jesus long before any trouble hit. So it was already there. He was already there to bring them through. They were in him at this time. It's a story of incredible faith, miracle after miracle, a bond of unshakable love, and most of all, God's purpose for a young man that was really different than he could have ever imagined. I want you to relax. I want you to settle in, and I want you to get set to be inspired by these people. This is the 54th edition. Or is it the 55th edition? 55th edition of the Be Life podcast. We've been doing this for over a year now, and it's constantly growing. We're adding subscribers. We've got listeners all over the world, and I thank you so much for being with us. We are broadcasting from the studios of Canton Nazarene Church in Canton, Ohio. The Be Life podcast is designed to give you information, give you news, but to be centered in our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And that's what we're doing. I want to introduce now to you Steve and Diana Saulnier. I've known them, since 1992.
32 years?
93.
Since 93.
Since 93.
92, 93.
He was on, and I have to tell you people, you have to understand this. He was on my staff. We were together. I don't even call it my staff. We were such a team. We were all head coaches and at Malone College, and Steve was one of the first people that was hired. One of the first full-time assistant coaches, he and Mike Gravier, and then we brought on other people, and Steve was instrumental in his passion, his love of the kids. Everything was so much a part of starting that program up and getting some unbelievable people. Steve then became, after I left, became the head coach. And he hired our pastor. And he was the one who allowed us to have Pastor Dan Hansen, as our pastor, because he brought Dan into this area. And you know, how God works is unbelievable. He allowed him to hire Dan as defensive coordinator. A couple of years later, Dan becomes head coach. Then Dan leaves and becomes a pastor here at Canton Nazarene. So we're very grateful for that. And I want to thank you both. I love you two. We don't see each other enough. We don't talk near enough. And I think most of that is my fault. But I want to thank you so much. I want to thank you for being with us. And Steve, first of all, tell us where you're at now. You've been coaching now for how long?
I always say like 38 years, but
38,
it's been 38 years for
decade-wise, coaching in the 80s, you know, later part of the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 10s. You know, I mean, 5 decades, you know, probably 30, 40, probably 40 years.
Wow.
It's been
I can't believe that. I can't believe that. That has gone so fast. I coached college football for 18 years, and I thought that was a long time. You're blowing that out of the water.
It's crazy. It really is how the years has continued to stack, and I love it. I enjoy it. So it's I'm still looking for that Bible verse where it says retire. I don't see that word retire in the Bible. No.
Yeah, and as long as you have the passion and the love, and I don't sense that it's ever going to leave you, sooner or later you're going to have to do it some other way, but you'll always keep doing it, I think. And the kids need you. The thing about it is, Steve, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to tell the listeners here. There are college football coaches. There are football coaches who are in it for the wrong reason. And there's far too many of them. And in today's NIL and open portal, and it's, now we've got guys hiring general managers at North Carolina and all this stuff. Yes. You're doing all this, and it's become a business. And there are few coaches in this country who, you and I have been through that, the all lobby teams of the conventions and everything, where everybody's trying to get the next job and all that. You're one of the few, and I will say this, and maybe it's greater, that are in it for the right reason. You're in it for the kids. You've always been about the kids. You've always been about the young men. Not that you don't want to win, not that you're not ambitious for victories, but you're not willing to bend corners and to take shortcuts to make it happen. And so people like you need to be in this business, and I commend you. This a gentleman who does it the right way, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. I just know the impact my coaches had on me. I think about my high school coach, who I kept in touch with till he passed away a couple of years ago. My college coach, who I kept in touch with all these years. He passed away last summer. I went to his funeral. Coach Monty Kiffin was my college coach. So went to his funeral last summer. They kept the relationship with me all these years, and it's meant a lot to me. It really has. And I love the quote from the late, great Billy Graham. Says a coach will impact more lives in 1 year than the average person will in a lifetime. And I really take that to heart. I really do. I think I know it's about the relationships. Those guys I coach get to become younger brothers to me. They really do. We are involved in their lives. Joe, you mentioned Malone College. We've had guys from Malone College come down and visit us down here in Pensacola. They'll stay at our house the night before they're checking into the hotel. And so we'll get to spend a little time with them. So it's been an unbelievable journey. It's been an unbelievable witness to greatness of seeing these young men become great professionals in their chosen profession, whether it's coaching, doctors, lawyers, accountants, whatever that may be. It's amazing to see these men. And I still think about when we recruited them, Joe, the 18, 19-year-old kids, but they're in their 40s now. They're in their 50s.
I know. I've got a guy that I coached at UTEP who is a special teams coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, Dave Tobe. And I look at him on the sidelines, and he's an older, gray-haired man. And I remember when I was a GA at UTEP,
right,
with him being a player. It's unbelievable how fast time goes.
It's unbelievable.
And the legacy that you'll leave will be a legacy that transcends generations. And it's really true. You are coaches, if they do it right, are affecting people's lives forever. And I'm an Iowa State grad, that. And Matt Campbell's doing the same thing out there. He is impacting young people's lives. They have a Bible study. I want to tell you before we get into your story. This is all part of it. They have a Bible study every Monday night, and we had a young man on that team on this podcast a few weeks ago. They have 35 young men, 35 football players that go to a Bible study every Monday and out of that team. And that's because Matt allows them, encourages them to do that. And he said to me, he said, he doesn't know one person on Iowa State's football team who came because of the money. They came because of the culture. And they're winning in spite of not having the most NIL and all those things.
Yes.
And that's, and you know, that's what this is all about. Now, I wanted to, before we take up any more time, just going, because I'll just go off the rails and keep talking and forget about you and Diana have in your lives, and I respect this so much, because there was most of my life, and people know this, most of my life I was more egotistical and more arrogant and more more interested in success than I was living for Christ and surrendering my life to Christ. It has only been, in the last 10, 15 years that I have truly surrendered my life and died to Jesus. And so, but I look at you two, and you two this has been a part of your lives ever since I've known you. And you've both surrendered your life to Christ long before any troubles hit. And that's the anchor that I was talking about. And you've always been rock solid. Now, I want you to go back and I want people to understand faith under fire. Because a lot of people that are watching this podcast aren't necessarily Christians. There's people who tune it in. There's people who are curious about it, about who Jesus Christ is. And it's important on this podcast to let people understand that the world doesn't change. Things happen. There are troubles, like we just said in John 16:33. But Jesus has overcome the world. Go back and let's talk and start out by talking about Jacob. You have Jacob and Hannah. Two kids. I think they were both born here in Canton, correct?
Yes, they were. Same hospital room at Mercy Hospital.
Same hospital room in Mercy.
Yep. Canton, born and bred.
and so Jacob, I remember Jacob being, constantly, all he wanted to do was hit a baseball. First it was off a tee. It was off a tee, then being thrown to, but that's all he did. It was like, I've never seen a kid who seemed like it was meant. It was like, this guy's got to be a big league hitter. He was meant to be a baseball player. It's all he wanted to do.
Destiny, right?
I'm going to let you take it from here. He had this, let's just proceed in his life to the point where you left Canton, you moved, and let's proceed from there. Go ahead and just talk of where you went next.
Good.
Yep. We left Canton, Ohio, after we started that program to start another program in North Carolina, Division II school, University of North Carolina, Pembroke. And Jacob was in what grade, and Hannah was in what grade?
Jacob was in fourth grade.
Into
fourth grade.
Yeah, Jacob was in the fourth grade. I think Hannah was in the second or first.
Going into second grade.
Yeah, going to second grade. So we went to North Carolina, and then we left North Carolina to start another program in Pensacola, Florida, another Division II program, the University of West Florida, where we are now.
Where we were national champions.
Where we were,
in 2019.
Yeah, so the Lord has blessed us tremendously everywhere we've been. Because as you know, Joe, had success at Malone College. We made the national playoffs within year 3 there. And then obviously we did the same thing in North Carolina, made the playoffs a couple of times. And then we came here, University of West Florida, made the playoffs. Actually played the national championship game in year 2, which was unbelievable. It was such a low. Yeah. And then we won it in year 4. So then when we moved to Florida, Jacob was entering his senior year in high school and Hannah was entering her sophomore year. So that's kind of been our journey. And I really, along the lines, I've always asked the Lord to protect me. If I didn't trust myself, like I never got caught up in levels. I didn't care if I was coach. I've been a head high school coach at West Branch High School, nearby Canton. I've been a high school coach in Raleigh, North Carolina, at Raleigh Broughton High School, assistant coach. So I didn't really get caught up in levels. I've been at University of Kansas as a young graduate assistant coach, University of New Mexico but so I never got caught up in levels. And one thing I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, I don't want to lose my family because I'm coaching. Because as you know, Joe, a lot of coaches' families are torn apart because daddy's away a lot, and really the children kind of hate and despise that what their dad does because it takes daddy away so much.
You spend more time with other people's kids than you do your own.
Yes. So and I think the Lord is on that despite my stubbornness. Sometimes, you think, oh man, why can't I be here? But you know what? It's been an unbelievable journey and it's been such a blessing in so many ways. And we have 2 incredible employed grown children
in athletics.
In athletics. So Hannah works at the University of West Florida in athletic department as a director of marketing and ticketing. And Jacob is a full-time strength coach at Liberty University for football. And I give Diana so much credit for always being the glue and bringing the children by practices and, during in the office and in so many ways, because she really was the glue and really kept us all connected. I say to this day how she just keeps this. Everyone asks, how's everyone doing? I say, Diana's the glue. She's keeping everyone going in the right direction. So I'm so grateful. I remind our players this, no matter what profession you go into, a big part of your success is who you're going to marry. So you better choose your spouse wisely.
Yes. Kirby and I have been married 43 years, and I tell her always, and I tell everybody else, it's only because of her.
Amen.
It's all because of her. She has kept the family together. She has kept us together. In spite of me. And so she has always been that person. And I realize that as you get older, Steve, we realize it more and more how important our wives are, how strong they really are. So you get to, obviously the things we saw Jacob doing when he was a kid, hitting the ball and always wanting to hit the ball, continued when he got to be in high school. And so he became probably a pretty good baseball player.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So when we lived in North Carolina, Jacob was going into his senior year when we decided to come to University of West Florida. And we were concerned because it was his senior year. He had worked so hard getting on the varsity squad in North Carolina. I mean, Southern baseball there's a lot of competition. Not that there isn't, but in the South, it's just different. And so he worked really hard in North Carolina to be on the team. And then we find out we're going to move to Florida. And his baseball coach actually offered for Jacob to live with him his senior year of high school because he loved Jacob, wanted him to be able to continue there, and knew, what a difficult transition it could be to start over at a new baseball program. And we gave Jacob the option. We told him, Coach Hodges said that you could live with him and we trust you that, but we want you to make that decision. We don't want to be the ones who make that decision for you. And he said, no, I'm coming to Florida with you guys. That's what I'm going to do.
Wow.
So Jacob and his coach said, I don't offer that to just anybody. That is an offer that I reserve for Jacob. And so Jacob came with us, and we looked at various schools here in Pensacola, and basically our kid's decision for where we were going to move was based on what team he was going to play for, which area school.
Uh-huh.
And he went to Tate High School and met some of the guys on the team and felt like that was going to be a good fit for him. And that's where Travis Fryman played baseball for the Cleveland Indians at the time. And so Jacob got to play with Travis's son, Brandon. And yeah, so it was great. And Jacob earned his first baseman's spot at Tate High School, legendary baseball here, and ended up actually winning the Travis Fryman Award his senior year, which was his only year, because of his leadership and his dedication to his sport and making the people around him better athletes. And he really was amazing because he came and had to prove himself again, which he had to do when we moved to North Carolina because people, had their daddy ball, and he had to break into that group and earn his spot in baseball there. And then for him to do it here at Tate High School and earn his position was really incredible.
Now, let me stop. Let me stop you a minute and just ask you a question. At this point, was Jacob's focus? I mean, I know, but Jacob he grew up. He's a Christian man. He's a young man who was raised with the Lord. But as far as his future, was it all? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going
100%.
baseball. I'm gonna be a Major League Baseball player. I'm full go with this. That was his focus at that point, I believe.
100%.
Yes, sir.
And so then he gets an opportunity to play in college.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Where? How did that?
So, he played at a Coastal Alabama Community College for 2 years. He earned a scholarship there, which was a junior college. So he did 2 years as their first baseman. And from there, after he got his 2 years in there, was offered a scholarship at Emmanuel College, which is a Division II college in Georgia.
Yeah. What's that place? Franklin Springs, Georgia. That's where it's located. Yeah. So,
I mean, and I think part of the difficulty was because he hadn't been in the system very long here. I just don't think that he had enough. I mean, he only had that 1 year in Florida. So he was given that opportunity to go to Coastal Alabama, which he did great. And even in, I mean, Jacob's senior year at Emmanuel, he was leading the country. He's quite an athlete, and just always worked hard, and also started training his teammates in weight training, which kind of sparked an interest in him in that realm. So God is awesome in how he orchestrates even that decision in Jacob's life, because after him going through what he did and baseball being completely out of the picture, God said, but I'm going to redeem that, and I'm going to put you in another direction, and I'm going to use you.
Yeah.
So
explain, was it after college or during college that he was first diagnosed, and talk about how that all happened, what happened? If you don't mind. I don't want you to be, I don't want to open up wounds and stuff, but I want people to hear this story.
Give God the glory.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amen.
Yep. Going back to his junior year, he led the conference, in RBIs his junior year, and that was a big reason why his coach wanted him to stay in North Carolina. And plus for recruitment purposes, like Diana said, but he decided to come here, and he still batted 357 his senior year, and he was encouraged. Go to he didn't go to junior college because he had bad grades. He had incredible grades.
Yeah,
Because he said just feel opportunity to get drafted. You just never know. I mean, you just never. So then after that, he chose Emmanuel. He loved that. It was a Christian school. They wanted to go, and excelled there. And like Diana was getting ready to say, it happened, Joe. After his senior year, he was leading all of Division II in batting average that year, and he was batting. He had a batting average of 500 at the time. It's like a couple weeks into his senior year, and that's when it all just kind of came crashed down. Because and I'll let Diana explain, because it goes back to our previous summer, how he was feeling this bump in his mouth, this on his tongue. So if you don't mind,
I know. So we have a lot going on, because not only did Jacob have, his junior year of college, he got in a collision at first base and tore his labrum at Greenville.
That's true. Yeah,
Greenville College, in North Greenville. So he worked very hard during the summer to rehab his arm to continue to earn his spot as a first baseman at Emmanuel. But also, Jacob worked here at the Blue Wahoos, which is our double A baseball team here in Pensacola. Jacob worked for the Blue Wahoos. And
summer job.
Yeah. So he had his job, and he was taking college classes and rehabbing his shoulder. So he had a lot going on, and he had mentioned to me about this sore in his mouth that summer. And I was like, well, you need to get to the dentist, because as a mom, you're always like, you need to get to the dentist and all those things. And so the summer continued on, and Jacob ended up going back to school in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that fall, Steve ended up having knee replacement surgery that December on our 25th wedding anniversary. He got a platinum knee.
Happy anniversary.
25th, 25. And so Jacob came home for Christmas, and Steve was rehabbing. So it was a lot, pretty intense, and didn't think anything of Jacob's tongue at all.
Jacob's an NC State too.
He never mentioned anything about it hurting.
He never complained.
No.
He's not a complainer.
So I just figured there was nothing wrong, because he never mentioned it again after summer. So I just felt maybe it was one of those little acid sores or whatever you get in your mouth from too much, creatine or something. I don't know. So anyway, Jacob is getting ready to go back to Emmanuel, which is 8 hours from where we live. And he was in the kitchen, and he bit down on something, and he said, ouch. And I was like, Jacob, what's wrong? I said, please tell me you still don't have that sore in your mouth. And he said, yeah, and it's really been keeping me up at night. It's been hurting so bad. And I was like, Jacob, get in the car and go to the doc in the box right now. Have him look at your tongue. So, and honestly, I was pretty concerned at that point, but it was just so overwhelming. And he went to the doctor, and they said, okay, take this magic mouthwash and this and that for the next couple weeks. And if it doesn't get better, you need to go see an ear, nose, and throat doctor. And I was like, oh, well, this is great timing. You're going back to school now. So, and you're in Georgia. What are we going to do? So Jacob liked this. He kind of just does his own thing. And part of the reason that it went even as it did was because as a mom, I was trying to step back a little bit, where you aren't saying you need to do this or that, and let him make those adult decisions. And it's one of the things that I regret, because I wish I would have been on him more about it, but I was trying to let him be an adult and, make some of those decisions, because he was 21 or 20 years old, 21. And so, or 20, actually,
Whatever.
yeah. So anyway, he ended up making an appointment for an ear, nose, and throat doctor in Georgia, which I was very impressed with.
Between practices. What other season's going on?
Yeah. And it was like almost an hour away from where his college was. And they were able to get him in. And the doctor did this CAT scan or procedure, did the biopsy, called Jacob back in, and Jacob's by himself, and the doctor tells him, you have tongue cancer. And Jacob's sitting there by himself. He said, literally, the doctor walked out of the office, and Jacob said, you need to get back in here because you need to call my parents and tell them exactly what you told me. I don't know how to tell them this. So it was a Monday morning, and I was here at home, and Jacob called, and I spoke with the doctor, and I said, well, how can this be? I said, we don't eat gluten. He doesn't drink pop.
Organic food.
We eat like what? How could this possibly be?
Doesn't dip, doesn't
smoke, chew, none of that.
None of that.
Ever. And so, anyway, Jacob told me that. We had just seen him the previous day because we went to see him in
Alabama. Yeah, he's playing Southern Alabama college down
there. So we
yeah.
drove over to watch his game.
Weekend.
And saw him there. And I told him, I had my bags packed. When he told me that, I said, Jacob, I'm on my way. And I drove up there by myself and saw Jacob. The doctor said they had a CAT scan done, and I grabbed that with Jacob, and we took it to the doctor's office, and I said, I want him to see it right now. Like, we need him to look at this right now because we need to know what to do. So we're in the doctor's office, and Jacob and I are both pretty sick to our stomachs. We're pretty nervous about this. And we get in there. He looks at Jacob. He looks at the CAT scan. And he said, I don't know what to tell you, but it's gone. There's nothing there. There's no cancer. And we were just praising God, and we were thanking him. He's like, it's not cancer. And he said, listen, this is what I would do. I would follow up with a university school system and have them look at the results and everything and see how they're going to take this lesion out of your tongue. But it won't be a big deal. It's not going to be, they're going to be able to go in there and take it out. It'll be fine. So we planned this trip to Tallahassee. We decided to go to Florida State University Medical Center because it's closer than going to Shands in Gainesville. University of Florida. So I'm thinking this is going to be a great trip. Hannah, Jacob, and me, we're in the car. We're getting a hotel. We're going to hang out at the hotel.
We're going to get this lesion out.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it was like we had this appointment with a doctor, and I don't know why they're sending us to oncology, but they did. And we're like in this oncology office, and the doctor came in and he said, well, we need to talk about this surgery to get this out. And I said, well, what's going to happen? I said, why are we even here an oncologist? I thought, and he's like, because it's cancer. And he said, I'm going to refer you to our ear, nose, and throat specialist. And we're sitting in there just dazed. Like, what is he talking about? So Jacob, Hannah, and I end up going to an ear, nose, and throat specialist. And, well, this is Dr. Whitaker in Florida State. And we're waiting basically in the waiting room, and they called us back in, and the doctor proceeds to draw on a whiteboard what's going on in Jacob's mouth. And he said, okay, we're going to have to, he's making a picture of the tongue. He said, we're going to have to take half of his tongue out, and then we're going to have to take his lymph nodes out. And then we'll have to see whether or not this, if it's spread. And we're sitting there stunned. We have I was literally going to throw up. And I'm pretty sure Jacob and Hannah felt the same way, because all of a sudden the fun trip has turned into they're taking half of his tongue out. And he said, but I'm going to email Dr. DZ at Shands, because I worked under him. I think maybe at Ohio State they were together. And so Dr. Whitaker got in touch with Dr. DZ at UF, and within 2 weeks, Jacob had his surgery. We met with Dr. DZ at Shands in Gainesville, and he explained the surgery. But I told Dr. DZ, I said, listen, I appreciate you doing this, but I believe that God's going to do a miracle, and he's not even going to need this surgery.
That's how much faith we had.
My faith is it's going to be gone. I mean, like, there's not going to be anything. And because I just believe that God has a greater purpose, and he is like, this is my son, and this is not going to end this way. And this is not going to happen. He's not going to need this surgery. But thank you anyway. Appreciate appreciate you very much for meeting with us.
Yeah, thank you. We really believe that, Joe. I'm telling you, we had so much faith. Like, we just say, Lord, we just know supernaturally you're going to heal him, and he's going to be healed. And we believe that
100%.
to the even the moment they put him on the bed and rolling him out, they're like, no, he won't need it.
Not going to need it.
But God had another plan.
Yes.
God had another plan.
And talk about surrender, because that was not my plan. In any way, shape, or form, that was not my plan. I still have to surrender to God's plan, because it's still painful, because it's not what I had planned. And yet God is using Jacob.
Now, let's go. He had the surgery. Now, this was major surgery.
This was
12 hours. I don't know.
Yeah, this was, and Steve has to tell you, our Dr. DZ.
Yes.
Tell him the story about DZ.
So Dr. DZ was so awesome, and he's, we're telling him, like, we're a family of faith. We really believe he's going to be healed, Dr. DZ. He has this long name, so he goes by Dr. Great guy. It's awesome. So I noticed on his arm, he has these scratches on his arm. I go, Doc, what's the deal with your forearm there? He goes, oh, I played a guitar at church, and sometimes the pick gets in the way. So long story short, Dr. DZ's a Christian, and we end up praying together. I mean, in hands, praying together. And so the miracle we accept now wasn't our plan. Was Dr. DZ was put in our life to save Jacob's life. And he's become like a family friend now, Joe. It's unbelievable.
Jacob just texts him, whenever he needs to go down to Florida for his appointments. He's like, yeah, I'll put you on the book, whatever.
Now, looking back, and we're going to go, I want to go into more, but looking back to where you are now, whose plan was best? I know that's a crazy question. You would have rather Jacob not go through this, but I have watched the video of Jacob and of the story that Liberty did. And Jacob is a different person today than he would have been had he been healed miraculously from the cancer. He is impacting more people today for Christ. I think that's me looking at it from 30,000 feet. You guys know better than I, but it sounds like God's plan was a pretty good one.
Unbelievable. Yes. More than I could ever imagine. Absolutely. It's unreal.
So back to, he goes through the surgery. His tongue's removed. He has to learn how to kind of talk again, correct?
He swallow. He couldn't swallow.
8 days it was 8 days in ICU unit with a feeding tube up his nose. Couldn't drink, couldn't
and they called it a cigar. It was basically this
white big gauze thing
that they had to put in his mouth so he wouldn't
swallow his tongue or bite his tongue, or swallow it. Correct.
He couldn't do like any. I mean, okay, so the surgery went like this.
Yeah.
They cut all from here,
74 lymph nodes,
lift up his skin over his face, took 72 lymph nodes out of his neck, and put a trach in. So he had a trach, cut half of his tongue, take this part of his forearm,
artery and veins, right?
Yes, rebuild his tongue with this part, take a brick square out of his thigh, out of his leg, to rebuild his arm. So all of this here, I had to bandage. You could literally see all his tendons. All of this, it looked like he had a massive shark bite, which is our fun story. We say, oh, he got bit by a shark, because that's what it looks like. So they took this part, rebuilt the tongue inside. So there was hair on his tongue initially, because it was, part of his arm. So here's our son. We walked in, we had no idea what to expect when we opened the curtain
12 hours later.
12 hours later when we walked in that room.
What happened when you did that?
When we walked in, that was probably the worst night of my life, was that night, because I didn't know what to do. And I had taped Jacob saying something to me before he rolled into surgery. I said, Jacob, tell me that you love me. And it's the last time I heard my son's voice. To be honest, I wasn't sure if we were ever going to hear him talk again. And I was hanging on to that video, which I still have, because that's the last time we ever heard him talk the same way. But now I hear him talk, and sometimes I forget that he has gone through that, because we went to speech therapy together, which our insurance did not cover, but the speech therapist connected to University of Florida did it for him because of his story. So she gave him basically free speech therapy. And taught him how to swallow again. I mean, when Jacob was done with his surgery, I stayed in Gainesville. One of our players' families had a guest house, and Jacob and I
lived there.
Were actually, their grandpa lived there in that house, and he gave us his home while he stayed in his RV. So we would have a place to stay after the surgery.
For months. 3-4 months.
Well, it come to find out, when we initially went through surgery, we thought it was just going to be the surgery, and the Dr. DZ felt like his lymph nodes were clear. But Jacob had stage 4 cancer, and we didn't know that. Yes. And we were told on a Tuesday, while Jacob and I were walking down the driveway with his feeding tube out his nose, that he was going to have chemo and radiation. I was not expecting that at all, because of what DZ said after the surgery. And that threw everything into total spiral, because now all of a sudden we're having to live in Gainesville.
Now this is like a roller coaster for you. There's so many ups and downs. You have cancer, you don't have cancer, you have cancer, now you do this. Okay, we think we got it all. We got all the lymph nodes. Oh, now it's stage 4. Now you got to go through chemo. Did he ultimately go through all the chemo?
Yes. Mm-hmm. He went through, so Jacob went from 210 pounds to 155 pounds when he rang that bell at Shands when he was done.
Did you ever lose faith?
Oh, absolutely. Well, See, I'm good. Jacob did it. Jacob was amazing. I, as a mom, really questioned. I didn't lose faith. I can't say. I always know that, but
Discouraged.
But you do say
yeah.
why?
Oh, I actually read Ann Graham Lotz's book called Why, because I'm like, I don't get this. I mean, this is a mystery to me. Steve had cancer. Steve had lymphoma in 2009. So we'd already been through that, and then he had knee surgery, and it's been a lot. And Jacob's surgeries. The day Jacob graduated from high school, he ended up that next early morning in the hospital because his appendix was about to burst. He had to have appendix surgery. Then he had labrum surgery. Then he had what Jacob refers to as a tonguesectomy. So, I mean, it's been like boom, boom, boom. So let me tell you, fast forwarding to the day that Jacob got married was the biggest celebration and the greatest day of celebrating because it was just amazing to see. And I savored every stinking moment of that day. And it was just perfect and amazing because it was so, I don't know, you need to celebrate when you need to celebrate. And it was definitely a celebration.
Now baseball was done.
Yeah.
He was probably told you can't play, or he's just not going to recover enough to play. Baseball is out of the question now. So not only is he dealing with the health issues, but he's dealing with an absolute roadblock in his dream since he was a kid.
Correct.
Yes.
How does he handle this? And tell us the next step, how he ended up where he is.
Yeah, that's great. So he was always around the football players, no matter where we were, Joe. And he would always jump in the training sessions and he would get his hands on the bars. And Jacob is what do you call him? Tactile learner. So I really think it was God's way of introducing him into strength and conditioning because he loves getting his hands like on a bat, on a bar, So but during that process of, being a high school baseball player, college baseball player, he did a lot of good training. And I used to joke and tell our linemen, I wish you guys would power clean as much as my son could. He's playing college baseball. He's doing more than we can do sometimes. But I think, come on, guys. But anyway, long story short, he starts with an internship in the summer because his major needed some undergraduate internship hours. So he does an internship here at the University of West Florida a summer. And then that fall, he does an internship in the weight room at NC State, all as an undergraduate. And he is just falling in love.
Now, he only did this because it was required for his major, not because
kinesiology.
It was a kinesiology major, undergrad, and he needed internship hours, do some kind of exercise science type deal. So we got in touch with our strength coach. I got in touch with the strength coach at NC State because Jacob, like I said, did a summer internship here at West Florida. And then after Thanksgiving, he was at NC State for Thanksgiving weekend all the way through December. That
6 weeks.
6 weeks at NC State. So that qualified his undergraduate hours to graduate. So that worked out great. So then obviously his last spring of his senior year starts the season off great, and et cetera. And then so I think that's where the love started right there. And he was always good in strength and conditioning, but the coaches would tell me he's the best intern we ever had. He's really that good. Anyway, so I really think that was God's introduction to him. So when the bat's being put down, you're going to be grabbing that bar. So one thing leads to another. He goes back to NC State and does an internship. And then from there, it goes to Bowling Green State University in Ohio as a grad assistant, And then from there, it goes to West Texas A&M University as a full-time strength and conditioning coach. And then from there, it goes to Liberty University. So it's just kind of, the Lord has opened up every door along the way in strength and conditioning. And Joe, he loves it. It's such he's so good at what he does. And and he's so passionate about it. It's great to witness, and I love just seeing it and happening. So it's really cool how God has replaced that one love for baseball to strength and conditioning. It's really awesome how God just, his timing's perfect. His plan's amazing.
And now he's doing basically what Dad does. He's working with young people. He's changing their lives. He's changing their lives physically, but he's also changing their lives spiritually, mentally. He's paying it forward. He's basically learned from you, and he's doing it. I mean, it blows me. This whole story, although extremely hard, and it hurts to hear it even a little bit in your voices. And I watched the video that Liberty did, and was, just broken down by the passion and the what you guys were going through. But it's an incredible story of God's grace and God's mercy, and none of us escape. We're all going to die.
Mm-hmm.
None of us escape the world and the fallenness of the world.
That's right.
The wages of sin is death, and this world is full of heartache, and it's fallen. But to see people like you who have overcome because of your love for Christ, because of your love for each other, and to watch and to be able to sit back, what would have broken a lot of families, you guys were able to see through. And now you look at this and you go, I mean, I look at it and just go, whoa, this was, Hollywood couldn't have come up with, nobody could come up with a thing like this. This is, in fact, it probably should be a movie, but it is, it just blows me away what God does. And I see it all the time in my life, but I don't see it nearly what you guys have. And it's amazing.
Well, I mean, I think I have to say, like, your faith is tested. Mine was. And I would have to say my faith has been tested many times along our journey as a coaching family. There are many, many times that you have questions and wonder, God, why are you doing, why are we going through this? Or what, but we wouldn't be the people that we are, or if we hadn't gone through some of those hardships and some of those, and also it's a building block of faith. So whenever you do go through each thing, one of the things that I always say that the Lord told me was preparation.
Yeah, that was your
All
word.
of life is preparation.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that in Canton, because Steve worked for FCA that one season. And we were just like, Steve just wants to, work for the Lord. Lord, why is this so hard? He was substitute teaching in Canton schools and doing and coaching that arena football league. We're just doing whatever we can to survive. And I was like, Lord, what in the world are we doing? Sometimes it looks like, what is going on in your life? And that's when I just heard preparation. All of life is preparation. And all of those, the preparing is part of the faith journey along the way. That when the storms do come, because they're going to come,
Yes,
then you can look back on what you went through and know the Lord was with me then. And it was hard. Oh my goodness, it was hard. And for us, that was 2019. And we ended that year with a national championship, which was amazing because we had gone through so much. And the people that we met along the way, that was one of the most special years, but so hard, but so special. And the family that opened their home to us, the Humphreys family, they are like family. They were just amazing. They had surrounded us with prayer, and people that we didn't even know in Gainesville came together and gave gift cards and met with us and prayed with us. Like, I'm talking lots of people in Gainesville, Florida.
That's 5 hours, 6 hours away, right?
Yeah, and they came, never knew us, and surrounded Jacob and had a prayer over him. They had a graduation party for Jacob when he graduated from college, because we were still going through chemo and radiation at the time of his college graduation. And they did that for us. Like, these are incredible people. They spent the day with us at the hospital. I had never met them before. And that was 11 hours. Kim brought a whiteboard for us because we were writing on paper because Jacob couldn't talk. And she went and bought us a whiteboard so we could write on the whiteboard and communicate with Jacob. And because we didn't understand going into the surgery, because first of all, we didn't think the surgery was going to happen because they were going to go in there and see this miracle. So we weren't prepared at all for any of that. And the people along the journey for us made just a huge difference. And it was like, the saying where you always want God to give you a hug, and like he uses people to do that. He totally used people that, and one of the ladies that we know started a GoFundMe for
We never would
us.
have thought
We
of
would
that.
have never
Never even
done
thought about
that,
that.
but that was huge because I couldn't work. I had to take time off from my job to take care of Jacob. I mean, when I took care of Jacob, the way we even slept at night, I slept on a couch with my legs up, with my knees up, so Jacob could lean against my knees because he couldn't put any pressure on his tongue or the blood flow would stop in his tongue. And so that's how we slept. And that's how I fed him, with holding a feeding tube up while he would fall asleep. So that's what we did. And the people along the way, though, were incredible. And the Humphreys family, they're family. They are.
You know what I've noticed with the Lord, and it's in my life, and I'm sure I know it's in yours. The Holy Spirit in us as Christians unites us closer than blood.
Yes.
And God uses, I see that at this church. I mean, I'm in love with so many people, deep, deep love, and especially the children. And they're all my grandkids, and in a situation like this, God brings these people that are in him because we're all one body, and he brings all these people to surround you and just love you. And they become, I mean, that's why we're called the body. These are all people. These are his arms, his legs, his voices.
All parts of the body.
Yes. And they're all coming together to unite with you. I'm blown away by you two. I always have been, but I am more than ever. And I'm blown away by Jacob and what's going on. And we probably, I don't know how long we've been going, Zach. Is it an hour? All right.
I do have to say one thing, though. Jacob always needs prayer. The one effect of radiation to your face is that it continues. And he's had a lot of, he had to have 2 root canals. He has just told me he has 3 more cavities. His jawbone has deteriorated since they had a picture of before and after. And it's one of the things I was really praying for when he would go through radiation. I would just sit outside in the garden at Shands and just pray for his army of angels to just be around him and protect him from the negative side effects of it. And so Jacob still suffers from the residual effects of radiation. And, Jacob was supposed to have 6 rounds of chemo, but the doctor Jacob had finished his 5th one. And we met with the doctor, and I said, I don't know if he can go through this next round of chemo because he's already down so much weight and he can't, it's really affecting him. And the doctor said, we're done. He's done. We're not doing any more chemo. And that was, he finished at 5 rounds. And, obviously a normal person that goes through chemo, if they're not missing half of their tongue or something in their esophagus, still has the ability, even though they probably don't want to eat very often, but still has the ability to eat. And he was still, on a feeding tube. So, if people that are listening to the podcast would just continue to pray for Jacob's healing, that would be probably my biggest request, is because that would mean a lot to us.
And people are listening to this all over, and we will continue to lift him up. We'll continue to lift him up in this church and you.
Thank you.
And hopefully people will hear this and continue to pray. I thank you so much for your time. I think it's great to see you, first of all. Thank you.
Too.
And we love you, and the best to Jacob and Hannah and your family and everything that you do, and have a great season coming up, Steve. And
yes, sir.
Enjoy your time. We love you. I want to thank Steve and Diana Saulnier for being with us, and I hope you enjoyed and take inspiration from their story. God is good. There are trials in this life, and God is good. And again, Jesus told us in John 16:33, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, because I have overcome the world. And thank you. Thank God for that. If you like this podcast, please allow us to continue to grow it, to get it out to people, to spread the word of Jesus Christ, not in a way that is airy-fairy and out there and all this, but a way that is real and reflects real life. So if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That allows us to reach more people. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast or anything else, just follow us so that we can continue to grow and reach more people for the Lord. I want to thank you for being with us. God bless you, and we will talk to you again next week.